Hello and how's it going, everyone? It is Skullzi here with the latest Bethesda news, rumors, and speculation. And it's almost June, it's almost E3. We are almost at the point to where we're gonna get the biggest Starfield information reveal ever. Because unless like every other gaming insider is wrong, unless all the community investigations and discoveries are just all coincidental, we are going to definitely get a huge Starfield reveal in like just about a month from now. And with that in mind, and since basically no one even knows anything about this game at all, no one knows like anything about the lore, basically nothing about the setting, about the factions, about whether or not aliens are going to be in the game, I figured I would do a special video for you all today and not break down like recent news or rumors, but tell you basically three big things, maybe more. Maybe the fire truck is excited too to talk about Starfield. I don't know why I have all these various different sound disturbances every time I record. If you can't hear the fire truck, that joke probably isn't funny, but the fire truck sounds real nice, just for context. It sounds like a real professional annoying fire truck. But basically, I want to talk about three big things that I'm going to predict, or at least that I think might happen in Starfield. And by big things, I mean these are pretty substantial things in terms of just switching up the overall gameplay formula from Bethesda Game Studios, and three of the more high-key, high-tier things that Bethesda Game Studios might achieve with this game. And if they achieve any one of these things, Starfield is going to be even more amazing. But if they somehow achieve all three of these things, then the game is going to be even more substantial. However, remember, these are all my opinions based on my speculation here. Some people might believe that these things might be in the game anyway, but I believe them to be still somewhat speculative and potentially might not be in the game just based on like previous Bethesda Game Studios patterns and their gameplay elements. But either way, I might have more than three. Counting is hard, and sometimes my brain just goes on these tirades and I just keep listing and talking about things endlessly until I catch myself and the skooma just settles down and I get sleepy. But let's not waste any more time and get to today's content, because the first thing I think that might be huge and might be in Starfield is spaceflight. And by spaceflight, I don't just mean like you click on something and then you fly there with a loading screen or some kind of like cinematic or something. I mean you actually can low-key control the spacecraft or be in the spacecraft as your hired pilot flies it from point A to B. If you choose to go that route, if you do have crews in this game. Here I am going on tirades again, but my point is I think spaceflight is definitely going to be in this game. I don't think that the player's spaceship is going to serve as like a hub of sorts where you just go to a computer or a galaxy map or like the cockpit, you click where you want to go and it just loads you there. I believe you're actually going to have spaceflight one way or another, and I don't know if it's going to be like Elite Dangerous style spaceflight to where you're actually piloting the spaceship and flying it around, or if it's going to be something to where you do have to be on a spaceship as it flies there, but a pilot flies it and you can like control the guns to defend the spaceship or do something else in the meantime while it flies from point A to B. But maybe you can choose the fast travel, kind of like how you could in previous Bethesda Game Studios games, to where if you already discovered something, you can just fast travel there if it's safe. But I think spaceflight is definitely going to be in the game, and this is actually based off some low-key actual evidence, because Todd Howard himself, who is basically the best person to quote about anything regarding Starfield, said they are using helium-3 as their fuel source for spaceflight in Starfield. So if they already have like the fuel for spaceflight chosen and planned out, and the thought work all built around it for fuel, I assume that there's also going to be spaceflight as well. So even though this is still speculation, there's some low-key evidence to support this fact, and if spaceflight is in the game, that's going to take it to a whole nother level for Bethesda, because a lot of people are thinking that spaceflight won't be in this game and it'll just be a fast travel situation. People are kind of thinking Bethesda Game Studios isn't capable of making a game where you can actually fly around in space. And while I do think that maybe it might not be in the game just based upon like how many planets are in the game and stuff like that, because if spaceflight isn't in the game but there's like 30 planets, huge planets you can explore, that would be a good give and take, if you know what I'm saying. But I think that spaceflight is still possible for being in the game. Even though it's possible for spaceflight to not be in Starfield, I think chances are it most likely is, and if it is in Starfield, it'll definitely push the game up to a higher level tier, and that's pretty hype. The second thing I want to talk about, that if it happens to be in Starfield, would push Starfield up a whole nother level is aliens. Now, this is something I've talked about like on a bunch of streams and some of my other videos, so I'll kind of go through it quick here for those of you who have already listened to me talk about my opinion and take on aliens. But basically, I believe aliens will most likely be in Starfield. However, it's another one of those things where there's potential for aliens to not be in the game. But if aliens aren't in the game, it wouldn't really be the most epic science fiction thing you can ever possibly imagine, which again is another Todd Howard quote. Todd Howard himself said that Starfield is the most epic science fiction thing you can ever imagine, and if aliens aren't in the game, I don't think it could be the most epic science fiction thing I could ever possibly imagine, Todd. There'd have to be aliens in a game, but there's a give and a take to this. I believe aliens will be in Starfield, or I should say if aliens are in Starfield, it would definitely make the game that much more better. But even still, if they are in the game, I don't believe we'll be able to play as aliens. We'll probably be playing as a human, but there's a lore reason for this. Starfield is the first entry into this new franchise, and is the first new franchise from Bethesda Game Studios in over 25 years. We don't know anything about the setting. We don't know anything about the lore. All we know is that outside of the game, we are human beings. So if we're to immerse ourselves into a new gameplay universe or a new game or whatever, playing as a human would inevitably make it more immersible or more accessible for immersion purposes, especially if there's aliens in the game. If we don't even know anything about the lore and the background for humans in this world, it would be even harder for us to just wrap our heads around the lore of aliens, especially if humanity is meeting these alien races for the first time. If all these races commingle for many years like Elder Scrolls and stuff, then it would make more sense for us to play as aliens out of the go. But my estimations about the story, and this is based on the 10th Planet book, I have the feeling that we're going to make first contact with all these different alien races, or this or the other alien race, however many there are. I believe it's going to be a first contact situation for humanity. So with that in mind, it would make more sense for us to only play as humans while we are meeting these alien races for the first time, because that way we're in the shoes of an actual human being meeting these alien races, getting to know their lore, maybe making diplomacy with them, choosing who we ally with, who we go to war with, and stuff like that. It would be a lot better for immersion purposes to only play as a human in the first Starfield game, even if aliens are in the game, but that kind of opens up the door for Starfield 2 to be even better, because we can play as the aliens we met in the first game in Starfield 2. That's my estimation on this, and again, it's based on an actual Todd Howard quote, but this is more speculative than the first thing, because who knows what Todd Howard meant by the most epic science fiction thing ever. But in my opinion, it can't be the most epic science fiction thing ever if aliens aren't in the game. And then the third and final thing that I think Bethesda Game Studios could do major power moves with by putting in Starfield is factions. And while factions don't seem as huge compared to the other things I broke down in previous videos, any longtime Bethesda Game Studios fan has been yearning for factions to make a real return into Bethesda Game Studios games. Yes, different factions were like in Skyrim and Fallout 4 and stuff, but for some reason it's just like the faction system doesn't feel as good as it used to feel in earlier Bethesda Game Studios games like Morrowind and even Oblivion and definitely Daggerfall, for example. I hope that the faction system in Starfield is a lot deeper, and by joining some factions you can't join other factions, but to make Starfield go up a whole nother level, if it's a big space setting, if it's multiple planets, maybe multiple different solar systems with multiple factions, it would be awesome for there to be ongoing battles and different faction dynamics between all the different factions as they vie for power. They'll have battles with one another, they'll try to actually get resources to level up their own assets, their own ships, their own just capabilities, and it'll be cool as a player to be able to join these factions or manipulate all these different faction power struggles. If Bethesda Game Studios can make factions be part of Starfield, but not only that, but have an ongoing deep faction system that we've seen in games like Mountain Blade 2 or Crusader Kings 3, obviously won't be as deep as those games because a lot of those games are based entirely around the faction dynamic, but my point is, if factions can be in Starfield and taken to a whole nother level and be part of the actual gameplay setting and have different power struggles and stuff in which the player can join or manipulate, that would be super hype and would definitely set Starfield to a whole nother level. Obviously, if all three of these things aren't in Starfield, Bethesda Game Studios could still make the game amazing and be good, but the whole point of today's video was to talk about three things that may not be in the game, but if they are in the game, would definitely set it to a whole nother tier in terms of greatness. And even if any one of these things was in the game, that would be amazing, but imagine if all three of these things were in Starfield. And a lot of the developers have been saying that this game is highly ambitious and potentially one of the most ambitious things in gaming ever. So with all this huge talk from Bethesda Game Studios developers and like insiders and stuff, you would think that at least 2 of these things would be in a game, but if all 3 were in a game, just imagine how hyped we should be if all these things are in the game. And we're less than a month away from having these questions finally answered, and I am super hyped. Even though this is all speculation, it's speculation based on actual real things, and in some of these circumstances, actual quotes from Todd Howard, and that's basically everything I want to talk about in today's video. As always, if you enjoyed the content, be sure to give the video a thumbs up, subscribe, and turn notifications on. A huge shout out and much appreciation to the following amazing people for going above and beyond to support the channel and bring you content like this. If you want to get a permanent feature video shout out in every single one of my videos from this point forward, you can support the channel over on Ko-fi, Patreon, or here on YouTube as an exclusive channel member. Links for all this and more are down in the description below, and as always, thank you for watching. Be sure to tune in next time, when hopefully you're part of the Starfield faction. I know I am, and I know that joke sucked. I'm part of that faction too. Shut up.
It just works.